I'm Mr. Nuts. And this is Cocoverse. In Cocoverse, nobody works for peanuts. Because, in Cocoverse, peanuts don't exist. Today, I'm starting a new series called Business Plans That Grow Businesses. Freelancers, digital nomads, and solopreneurs entering today's crowded global marketplace face tough competition. Fortunately, there's a little shortcut. Do what you do best, and do it with expert-level clarity. Then you can see some success fast without spending years trying. Freelancing is not a shortcut. It's hard work, not a side hustle lottery. It's a business, and just like any other business, you have to answer some uncomfortable questions early on. What exactly are you selling? Who exactly are you selling it to? How exactly do you find those people? And why exactly should they pay you instead of someone else? Most freelancers skip these questions. That's the first mistake. When starting up, people make a big mistake trying to pick a niche somehow. They go broad, way too broad. That sounds flexible, but in reality, you've just dropped yourself into a global market with thousands of competitors who look exactly like you. When that happens, price becomes the only thing clients can compare, and that's a game you don't want to play. You'll end up working for peanuts. And in Cocoverse, that is not acceptable. Looking exactly like your competitors is the reason why copying someone else's freelancer profile, for instance, is one of the worst moves you can make. When you copy another profile, you're erasing your identity. You're playing the same game, offering the same thing, to the same people, in the same way. Heavy competition, low leverage, and zero differentiation. If your profile could belong to anyone, it belongs to no one. You must appear unique to your intended clientele. Now here's where expertise changes everything. By the way, this is my uncle. For fun and tree advice, you're the best uncle around. Moving on. Freelancing done right is an expert's game. And no, you don't need a PhD. You need the ability to predict. An expert can look at a client's problem and already see the road to the solution. They can estimate time, cost, risks, and outcomes before execution even starts. They know what's certain and what's uncertain, and that's what clients are really paying for. This is why experts stand out, even in crowded markets. You don't need fancy tools or fancy titles, although they might help. You must be able to say, here's what will happen if we do this, and being right. Do that, and your clients are impressed, and might hire you again. Here's a little hack for finding your niche, assuming you have a rough idea about what you're good at. Write down the problem that some people have and the solution you offer in a very efficient way. Efficiency is super important. For instance, nobody wants a landing page designer who takes 3 months to make a draft. Then, imagine all other people in the world who can deliver a less efficient solution to the problem. They are either slower or the quality isn't equally good. Imagine those people who can offer an equally efficient solution to the problem. Imagine a dream client who needs the solution more than most. Typically, these are people whose business you can enable and not people who would only gain a slightly more convenient way to execute it. Research where those dream clients go to find the solutions they need. Now, you've defined your core offering, a classic solution to a problem kind of formulation. You also know the competition that you do not need to worry about, as long as you can explain your difference to your clients. If that distinction is unclear, you will not be seen as an expert. The people who provide an equally efficient solution is your actual competition. The number of these people in the world dictates the average payoff in the market you are engaging in. High impact, high value. Therefore, a good opportunity to make your freelancing career successful. The rest of the game is rather obvious. You simply go where your ideal clients go to meet them. It can be done online or in the physical space. In other words, you can define the problem space, you can define your solution, and you can define your clientele. All of your freelancing business is defined by yourself and no one else. Today, we look at a very useful concept called ICP. Ideal Client Profile. In business books, it's called Ideal Customer Profile, but here, I use client since that's who freelancers often chase: clients. And let me be very clear about this, because this is one of the most misunderstood ideas in freelancing. An ICP is not a corporate marketing exercise. It's not something only big companies with strategy teams need. Even freelancers need an ICP. I should say, especially freelancers. Because you work solo, you don't have infinite time to go out there and try to market yourself to find clients. Your ICP is a clear picture of the type of client who gets the real value from what you do. Not the client who could use your service, but the one who genuinely needs it. The one whose business depends on the problem you solve. The one who feels real pain if that problem is not handled properly. Without an ICP, freelancers drift into the dangerous mindset of, anyone could be a client for me. And that is how chaos enters your business. Endless hours of finding people without any clear targets. Imagine talking to half of the people on this planet before finding one. That's over 4 billion people. When you try to appeal to everyone, your messaging becomes vague, your positioning becomes weak, and your value becomes unclear. You spend more time convincing people why they should hire you at all. That usually leads to lower trust, longer sales cycles, and constant pressure on price. You'll end up working for peanuts. And that's something not allowed in Cocoverse, because over here, peanuts don't even exist. When you define an ICP, the opposite happens. You stop selling, and you start being recognized. Your communication becomes sharper, because you know exactly who you are talking to. You understand their constraints, their risks, their internal pressures, and what success actually looks like for them. That allows you to frame your expertise in a way that immediately resonates. Here's another critical point. An ICP is not only about who you want to work with. It's also about who you should avoid. Not every paying client is a good client. Some clients create uncertainty, endless scope creep, and unnecessary stress. Experts learn to filter those clients out early, and your ICP gives you a practical way to do that. And this is how an ICP helps you find better clients. By the way, this is my aunt. Aunt, a double blessing. You love like a parent and act like a coconut. Moving on. To define your ICP, you can ask simple but powerful questions. Where do these people go when they need solutions? What platforms do they trust? What communities are they part of? And what kind of language or professional slang do they use when describing their problems? The last part is important when you try to communicate with your clients. Instead of spreading yourself thin everywhere, you focus your energy where it actually matters. That saves time, reduces frustration, and improves the quality of every conversation you have. You're no longer pitching to strangers. You're showing up where people are already looking for you. And here's the real payoff. Clients who fit your ICP respect your process, trust your estimates, and value predictability. They don't want miracles. They want certainty. Good work done according to the plan for the price agreed. They want to know that what you promise will actually happen. And that is exactly where expertise shines. So, why do freelancers need an ICP? The answer is simple. It's not about marketing. It's mainly about control. Control over your time. Control over your pricing. Control over your workload. And ultimately, control over your business. Define your ICP properly, and everything else in freelancing becomes much easier to align. Today, we look at something freelancers often ignore when starting out. It's the difference between having a vague idea and having an actual plan. And no, I'm not talking about a 50-page corporate document that no one reads after writing it. I'm talking about clarity. The kind of clarity that tells you what you sell, who you sell it to, and why they should care. Ever seen that South Park episode with the underpants gnomes? They had a brilliant 3-step business plan. Step 1. Collect underpants. Step 2. Step 3. Profit. That missing step 2? That's where most freelancers live. They want profit, but the middle part is foggy. The process of making a profit isn't perfectly clear. That means random services, random clients, random pricing. And then they wonder why the business isn't stable. By the way, this is my cousin. Cousins are coconuts that will love you forever. Moving on. So what should new freelancers and solopreneurs actually know before trying to grow fast? Let's look at the formal theory. This is the classic lean canvas. It's been used for defining all aspects of a startup business for decades now. And it's been working well. Basically, you define the problems your company is solving. Then, the solutions. Key metrics for measuring the success of your company, unique value propositions, unfair advantage, and so on. This gets a little bit too technical and heavy if you try to use it for defining a one-person business. So, let's simplify. Let's make a simple business plan template suitable for one-person businesses. First, you have to start with your specialty. What makes you unique, and what you're really good at. There is no point trying to do something you've never done before. So, first, look at your career so far, and what problems you've solved at work before. A good, solid competency profile usually combines multiple skills to solve a complicated problem. And you excel at organizing projects and leading them through. Your competency as a product lead could be more valuable than the mere product design skills. So, you can fill bigger shoes in your client's organization. It's the combination of skills that gives you the unfair advantage, which simply means you're better at something than an average worker. Yes, you have one, even if you think you don't. Second, think of the people you've worked with before, in other words, your potential clients. Your ICP that I talked about last time. Focusing on specific people you've worked with in your day job, for instance, gives you a really simple way to define your clientele. Here, knowledge and experience count much more than guessing. And this part could be a matter of doing research if you're at the start of your whole career. But then again, running a solo business without any work experience is pretty nuts in the first place. Third, think of a significant problem in any industry you know well. Do not think of a solution first. That's where things go south. If you don't know about any significant problems, do some research. This is relatively easy if you manage to define your clients in the previous stage. What were the problems they faced constantly? Solving one-time problems isn't much of a services business as there would be too few opportunities around in the world. A simple way is to go to some of the freelance websites and look for jobs in your field. Freelance jobs are usually problem-oriented, unlike long-term positions in day jobs. When you work solo, you only need to have one big problem you solve efficiently. Just one. That's the beauty of freelancing. Solving one significant problem can be your first niche as it is. Next, you look at the solution you offer. Here, you can go creative and think of something new, or just look at what others deliver and try to do the same more efficiently. If you're good at what you do, and you've nailed the clientele as well as problem parts, coming up with a good, efficient solution is rather trivial. Finally, you look at the unique value proposition. UVP is basically a short description that tells why your ideal clients should hire you to solve their problems. A strong UVP doesn't just describe features. It connects those features to outcomes your customers actually care about. Think of it as the bridge between what you sell and what your customer wants to achieve. To do this correctly, think it through from your client's perspective. You should be able to answer their question, "What's in it for me?" and be clear about it. The rest of your business plan is pretty simple. Think of key metrics that help you track if you're doing the right things that help you both to find ideal clients and offer them highly efficient solutions in a systematic way. A metric could be, for instance, the number of potential clients you connect with on a social media platform in a week or a month. The idea is that the metric makes you execute your process regularly. Then, the last thing to do is to figure out how to meet those ideal clients. In other words, sales channels. This isn't anything more than the basic idea of going where your clients go. It can be a freelance job site, a networking event, a startup accelerator space, or anything where the people who fit your ICP descriptions regularly go. Now, you have all the essential parts of your business plan defined. And this means, you're ahead of 95% of other freelancers who are still stuck trying to find clients randomly. Like this guy. Imagine being on the receiving side of this so-called conversation starter. Yeah, not so fun. But perhaps a good opportunity to laugh out loud. Okay then, you now know how to define a simple, freelancer-friendly business plan. The rest is up to you. Go succeed. This is the third episode of my series Business Plans That Grow Businesses. This time, I show you how to use your career stage as an advantage when you decide to go solo and start freelancing. Even if you're a student with no work experience. Also, I make a comparison to how experienced professionals get an easy start for their one-person businesses. Basically, becoming a freelancer is easy. Quit your job. Sign up on a freelance platform. Call yourself a freelancer. Well, that's only technically correct. Watching a few videos about how to get your first job online will not build you a business. The real challenge is turning zero into short-term and long-term success. And here's the twist. Even with no experience, you can control one thing immediately. Customer experience. Yes, you may be a beginner in terms of skill. But you must not be a beginner in professionalism. If you make mistakes, hide the chaos from the client. Redo the work. Double-check everything. Triple-check if needed. Ask a friend to review it. Buy the guy lunch as thanks. Or split the profit if you must. Protect your credibility at all costs. Communicate clearly. Stay polite. Stay positive. Even if you are sweating internally. Promise conservative timelines. Assume something will go wrong. Because something will go wrong. Use Murphy's Law as your guideline. Learn risk management early. Plan rigorously. Absorb the shock of accidents yourself. Do not pass your mistakes to the client. Never, ever, ever. And never ask for money before delivering what you promised. This builds trust like nothing else. Make a promise. Deliver what you promised. Then, over-deliver just a little. And your client will be happy to pay you, even if you appear young and inexperienced. Professionalism always pays off. If someone must lose, let it be you in the beginning. You are selling experience. Do not vanish when things go bad. Take responsibility. Make notes. Improve. Starting from zero means that you are the newbie and the CEO at the same time. That combination is explosive. But if you handle it well, and you grow fast. Super fast. Handle it badly, and you disappear quietly. This is where mentoring helps. Find someone who has walked the path. Someone who has done for years what you're trying to do. Someone who actually built something. Ask them if what you're about to deliver is good enough for your client. Ask how to explain the results without sounding amateur. Ask what to learn next. A mentor does not just give answers. Mentor gives perspective. And perspective shortens the learning curve. By the way, this is my second cousin. My dear young cousin, if there's one thing I've learned over the eons, it's that you can't give up on your coconuts, no matter how tempting they make it. Moving on. Now let's talk about how experienced professionals start a business. They have one big advantage. With years and years of industry experience, they don't make excuses. They don't blame others, saying the dog at my business plan. As they are already within the industry, they can simply use their connections to find their first freelance jobs. Work for ex-colleagues, ex-employers, friends within the same industry, people who already trust you. It's highly practical. It's often the easiest first step. But you also need to know where you start. Mainly, online or offline? With people you already know or those whom you don't yet know. But your local market defines your ceiling. Big city, more opportunity. Small town, smaller value chain, fewer opportunities. If you're young and inexperienced, offline work in the local circles can mean peanuts. Yes, peanuts. How horrible. You'd end up working on jobs nobody else wants. Low pay, low prestige, limited growth. And remember an essential fact. When you're your own business, a freelancer or solopreneur, no employer is investing in your growth now. Not a single one. Nobody cares about how well you do except for your family and friends. You are funding your own education, literally, with your money and or with your time. That is heavy when you are learning skills and business at the same time. An internship first might not be a bad idea. See what good work looks like. Understand industry standards, or assist a family business. Learn operations. Learn value chains. Learn reality. Now, what about those freelance sites? Jump in? Sure, but only with a plan. All those platforms are now very old. Competition is experienced. Profiles are polished. Track records are mile long. You are entering a battlefield with veterans who know every trick. So how do you survive? Communication, professionalism, expectation management. But first, you have to put in all the effort up front to learn everything about how those platforms work before you get started for real. Otherwise, you're literally wasting your time and money over there, trying things that others already know won't work. So, again, mentoring speeds things up. Find that legendary guy who has a massive track record and make a deal with the person. Do not look desperate. Do not list every skill you think you have. Specialize. Now, as you realize, we're going back to the previous topics of how to pick a niche and make it work for you. Think globally. Aim high. Go where the real value is. And the best part? You do not have to start with peanuts. You can go straight for coconuts. Whether beginner or expert, remember this. You can lack experience. You cannot lack professionalism. Create a fantastic client experience, and you give yourself a fighting chance. If you lack knowledge, find a mentor. If you already know the industry, use your connections to get an easy start and expand from there. Today, we look at something freelancers almost never track. Customer acquisition cost, also known as CAC. And when freelancers hear that term, most of them react like this. CAC? What CAC? In their minds, business is simple. You work, client pays, money appears. End of story. But real businesses always have expenses, even when freelancers think they don't. Customer acquisition cost simply means everything you spend before a client signs a contract. Marketing costs, advertising costs, publishing costs. Even things like blog hosting or producing educational content can be part of your CAC. But the highest cost is usually invisible. Your time. Time spent writing proposals or emails. Time spent talking to potential clients. Time spent preparing project scopes. None of that time is billable. Yet, time once spent is gone forever. Which means it is a real cost to you personally. And many freelancers spend huge portions of their week doing exactly that. Hunting clients, chasing gigs, spending time without landing work. So, there are two main types of CAC you should have control over. Money and time. The money side is easy to understand and measure. Let's look at an example of a freelance platform, for instance. The platform does only one thing for you. It connects you and your client. Thus, what it does is logically CAC even if the charge comes later when the client makes the payment. Imagine you win a $10,000 project online. Sounds great, right? But platforms charge fees. For example, 20%. That means the platform alone may take over $2,000 from that project. And that is only one part of the CAC. Before you even get that project, you spent some money sending proposals that did not land projects. Those are also your CAC, meaning money spent before landing paid work. Now, the time part. And maybe you spent 10 hours sending proposals to different clients, going through interviews and doing other preparations before landing that sweet $10,000 gig. Let's say your hourly rate is $50. Technically, those 10 hours already cost $500. Kind of. Nobody is transferring that money to anyone else, which is why this is hard to count as CAC. Now, those 10 hours of your work are worth $500. That is basically money you didn't get, as you spent it on getting work in the first place. It's invisible CAC. Had you been fully occupied with paid work, you would have made those $500. If you could have gotten more work without spending that time on hunting gigs, your revenue might have been $10,500. So, your total CAC to make that $10,000 revenue consists of the 20% platform fee, which is $2,000, and $500 you lost by spending that time on getting the gig. $2,500 in total. But in your books, you only see that $2,000 platform fee taken away from your revenue. That is your visible CAC. And that $500 is invisible CAC, the money you never made. Many freelancers never calculate how much that invisible CAC is, which means they can't control it. By the way, this is my neighbor. Good coconut fences make good neighbor coconuts. I don't like this guy that much, so I let him roll a bit further. Moving on. Now compare the previous CAC calculation to an entirely other scenario. Networking inside a paid community. Suppose membership in the community costs $500 per year. That sounds expensive at first, hard to pay up front. But imagine that the community brings you one excellent $10,000 project, the same size as in the first scenario. Now your visible CAC is only $500 plus the time you spend on participating in networking events, doing intro calls, and joining meetings, which is the invisible CAC here. Maybe 10 hours total, again, meaning another $500. Thus, your CAC is $1,000. That is less than half of the freelance platform example. Same size project, lower acquisition cost, higher profit. The difference is, you pay for the community membership upfront. Few freelancers have the brains to do that. And that is the real lesson here. When you measure CAC, you start seeing which sales channels work for you best, which methods waste time, which strategies actually bring results. Without those numbers, you're flying blind. Just like an average coconut. You're hoping the next clients appear. And sometimes they do. But hope is not a strategy, remember that. So what should a good freelancer do? First, identify every cost involved before a client signs the contract. The visible CAC and the invisible CAC. Calculate both money and time spent. And second, calculate the total. Include time, include fees, include marketing, and your time spent on doing all the necessary preparations. Third, compare your sales channels. Some will clearly be more efficient. And finally, optimize the ones that bring the best clients with the lowest acquisition cost. Because if you ignore CAC, it quietly eats your profit. But when you control it, your business becomes predictable. And predictable businesses grow much faster. Today, we look at a really strange paradox in freelancing. Why freelancers struggle to spend money even when spending would clearly increase their profit. Entrepreneurs spend money to build systems that produce more money later. They totally get this, every single one of them. That's the whole point of building a scalable business. Freelancers often do the opposite. I'd do a facepalm right here if I could, but my animator hasn't made that animation sequence yet. Sorry about it, I'll ask for an update. Anyway, freelancers try to avoid spending money even when it would improve their business. The difference is mindset. Workers think about income. Entrepreneurs think about investment. Let's start with the first reason. Freelancers often think like employees, not like business owners. In the employee mindset, expenses are bad. Salary good, expenses bad, that's it. But you can't blame them, to be fair. That's how most people grow up thinking about money in the first place. It's in their genes, but it's not in my genes because I'm a walking, talking AI coconut. But that's just me. But seriously, businesses do not work like that. Businesses use expenses as tools. Those tools help generate more income. Better believe it, buddy. Here's a small example. File storage. Many freelancers use the free version of Dropbox, for instance. Lots of free storage space, but limited versioning history. That means minimal protection. But the Pro version gives you almost unlimited storage, and most importantly, version history. That means if you overwrite a file or delete something important, you can restore the previous version with literally 2 clicks. The free version allows 30 days of versioning. Imagine you get a long-term project of half a year and the client suddenly asks for a version of a document from the beginning of the project. With the free version, that file might be gone forever. Now you explain to your client it's gone because you tried to maximize making money for yourself. Now you spend hours rebuilding work that already existed once. With the Pro version, you simply restore the file in seconds. Literally just 2 clicks. A small monthly or yearly cost can protect hours of work and your professional reputation. That is not an expense. That is business insurance. The second reason freelancers struggle to spend is that they see costs but they don't see avoided losses. If losing a file costs 6 hours of work, and your time is worth $50 per hour, that mistake costs $300. Seriously, that's the cost compared to the case where you could be earning money with your time instead of fixing mistakes for free. Suddenly, that small yearly storage fee looks cheap. By the way, this is yet another cousin. If you refuse to plant coconuts, you will spend your whole life searching for fallen ones. Just like this guy. But honestly, I even forgot his or her name. Sorry about that. Moving on. The third reason is simple. Freelancers rarely calculate ROI. Return on investment. Let's look at another example. Having a business coach. Suppose a coach takes a 20% commission from the extra income they help generate. Note, it's not a commission on your baseline that you manage to get on your own before working with the coach. No, from the additional revenue you make with the... Many freelancers panic immediately, thinking 20%? That's expensive. But imagine your monthly revenue increases from $3,000 to $5,000. That is $2,000 extra income. 20% commission means the coach receives $400. How much time the coach spends on guiding you is practically irrelevant. What matters, obviously, is how much more you make. You still keep $1,600 more every single month. That is not a loss. That is a profit engine. And after you've learned everything your coach has enabled you to learn, you can dump the coach. So, the entire future earnings are pure profit. You don't need to pay that 20% forever, obviously. You keep whatever skills you learned, and move on without your coach. So what should freelancers learn from this? First, stop thinking only about costs. Think about investments. Second, calculate the benefits. Time saved, revenue gained, risk avoided. Third, compare those benefits to the price you are paying. If the benefit is bigger, the decision is easy. That is how entrepreneurs think. They do not spend money randomly. They spend money strategically to produce more profit. And when freelancers learn this skill, their businesses start growing much faster. Today, we look at something critical. Why freelancers need multiple sales channels. Many freelancers start the same way. They sign up on freelance platforms. Create a profile. Start sending proposals. Pay the platform commission fees. Sounds reasonable. Everyone does it. And that is exactly the problem. Those platforms are overcrowded. Thousands of freelancers competing for the same jobs. Clients receive dozens of proposals, sometimes hundreds. Which means you are not only selling your skill, you are fighting for attention. And when your only channel is that platform, your business depends on algorithms, competition, and pure luck. That is not a stable business. That is a casino where only the lucky freelancers win. The second channel is networking. Online and offline, talking to people, joining discussions, participating in communities. This is where trust starts forming. Before any proposal is sent, people hire people they recognize, people they remember. And when someone already knows you, the competition disappears. It's like magic. You are no longer one of 50 proposals. You are the obvious choice. Offline networking works the same way. Events, meetups, conferences. Conversations turn into connections. Connections turn into opportunities. Opportunities that turn into direct contracts. Offline networking is probably slower at first, but much stronger over time. The third less obvious channel is paid communities. By this, I mean professional groups, societies, or associations that charge a membership fee. These often require an upfront fee, which scares many freelancers away. But that is exactly why they work. Fewer people enter, higher quality discussions, more serious clients. And if you're one of the few elite freelancers in the group, you might become the go-to guy for all those other people there. Instead of shouting in a crowded marketplace, you are inside a curated room with decision makers. talking directly to them, and making deals quickly. One good client from such a community can cover the membership cost multiple times over. That is efficiency. Lower noise, higher value. The fourth channel is content that brings inbound leads. Creating content, sharing knowledge, explaining what you do, the impact of your work on someone else's business. Articles, videos, posts, social media stuff, anything that shows your expertise. Over time, people start finding you, instead of you chasing them. Clients arrive already convinced that you know what you are doing. That changes everything, literally. Instead of convincing people to hire you, you are selecting who to work with. That is a completely different game. By the way, this is my neighbor. If you only pick coconuts from one coconut tree, do not be surprised when the tree runs dry of fruit. Moving on. Now, here is the real problem. Many freelancers try one channel, get frustrated, and stop. Then they try another one, start from zero again. No consistency, no system, no growth. But businesses don't work like that. You build channels in parallel, slowly, step by step. One brings quick wins, another builds long-term stability. Together, they create resilience. If one channel slows down, others keep the business alive. That is how real businesses operate. Not dependent, but diversified. And here is the best part. Over time, your best clients rarely come from the most crowded places. They come from relationships, reputation, and visibility. Channels where trust already exists. So what should freelancers do? First, stop relying on a single source of clients. Second, build at least 2 or 3 channels. Third, track which ones bring the best results. And focus more energy there. That is how you build a stable pipeline. Because a freelance business without multiple channels is always one step away from uncertainty. And uncertainty leads to peanuts. Yak. Multiple sales channels lead to coconuts. And today, we look at the most important factor in your entire business. You. You couldn't have guessed, huh? I'm talking about your personality and your strengths. Your natural way of doing things. Because here is the truth. There is no single perfect strategy that works for everyone. In freelancing, one size does not fit all. Let's start with personality types. Some people are introverts. They don't enjoy constant social interaction. Forcing themselves into busy networking events drains their energy. Very exhausting. But give them a keyboard, and suddenly everything changes. Writing messages, thoughtful replies, structured conversations. For introverts, online networking becomes natural, efficient, and perhaps even enjoyable. That is an advantage, not a weakness. Now, the opposite. People who enjoy attention. They feel energized when speaking in front of others. Conferences, workshops, live presentations. These environments create visibility, and visibility creates inbound opportunities. Instead of chasing clients, clients start chasing them. That is a completely different game. Then we have people who are terrified when speaking to a big audience. But they love writing. They can explain ideas clearly, structure thoughts, tell stories. These people can become content creators very easily. Posting insights, sharing knowledge. Over time, their audience grows. And that audience becomes a source of clients. That is inbound marketing powered by writing. And then, presentation skills. Some people are naturally good on camera. Clear voice and confident delivery. These people can build a presence on YouTube or other video platforms, explaining concepts and teaching ideas, demonstrating expertise, portraying authority. And again, clients come to them, instead of the other way around. Notice something important here. Different personalities, different strengths, different channels, but all lead to the same outcome. Clients, revenue, growth. The difference is how they get there. By the way, this is my great uncle. If you try to climb a coconut tree like a fish, You will think you are stupid your whole life. Moving on. The biggest mistake freelancers make is ignoring who they are. They force themselves into strategies that feel unnatural. And when it feels hard, they assume they are doing something wrong. But often, it's only the strategy that is wrong, not the person. So what should you do? First, understand your strengths. How do you naturally communicate? Enjoy writing? Good at speaking? One-on-one conversations? Presentations? If you're not yet sure, take a personality test. Second, choose channels that match those strengths. Not what others are doing. What works for you? Third, double down on them. Build consistency and systems. And eventually, it leads to visibility. And over time, those channels will compound. That is how real businesses grow. Not by copying others, but by leveraging your own advantages. Because in the end, your business is built around you. Quite literally. And your greatest advantage is being yourself. This is how you turn your personality into a competitive edge. And build a business that actually fits you. This was all I had to say about business plans that grow businesses. Next time, we start a whole new series on something that goes beyond the basics. The mindset that keeps your one-person business in business not just for a year or two, but for decades. So, see you soon again in Cocoverse. Now, back to bed.